The sun beats down on the man pushing a boulder up a mountain. Sweat drips into his eyes, his muscles burn, and just as he nears the summit, the rock tumbles back to the valley. He walks down, shoulders slumped, and begins again. This is Sisyphus, the ancient Greek king condemned by the gods to repeat his futile task for eternity. To most, his punishment is the epitome of despair, a meaningless labor in a meaningless world. But Albert Camus, the Algerian French philosopher and novelist, saw something else. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, he wrote. In those 5 words, Camus distilled the essence of absurdism, the art of finding joy not despite life's lack of meaning, but because of it. This is not optimism, it is rebellion. Camus opens the Myth of Sisyphus with a startling declaration. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. For him, the question of whether life is worth living arises from the absurd, the chasm between humanity's innate hunger for meaning and the universe's cold indifference. We seek purpose, order, and answers. The world offers none. Stars burn silently. Rivers flood villages without malice. Children die of diseases they did not deserve. This mismatch is the absurd, and it haunts every thinking person. The absurd is not a theory. It is an experience. It is the moment a parent buries a child and screams, "Why?" into an empty sky. It is the scientist who dedicates her life to curing cancer, only to succumb to it herself. It is the realization that even love, art, and legacy will vanish when the sun explodes. Camus called this the unreasonable silence of the world. Unlike nihilism, which declares life objectively meaningless and often slips into apathy, absurdism confronts the void without surrendering to it. The absurd man, Camus wrote, says yes, and his effort will henceforth be unceasing. Nietzsche's madman famously mourned the death of God, warning that humanity had unchained this earth from its sun, and now strayed as through an infinite nothing. For nihilists, this loss of divine order reduces existence to a cosmic joke. If nothing matters, they argue, why care? Why strive? Why not sink into hedonism or despair? Camus rejected this conclusion. To him, nihilism was a form of intellectual surrender, a refusal to grapple with the tension at the heart of existence. Absurdism, by contrast, is a dance with the absurd. It acknowledges the lack of inherent meaning, but refuses to let that void dictate one's spirit. I want everything to be explained to me, or nothing, Camus wrote. The absurd is born of this confrontation. The key difference lies in rebellion. Nihilism shrugs. Absurdism pushes the boulder. Nihilism says, life is meaningless, so why bother? Absurdism replies, life is meaningless, so I will bother. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was punished for outwitting the gods, twice escaping death and briefly trapping Thanatos, the god of death, in chains. For his defiance, Zeus sentenced him to eternal drudgery, yet Camus saw nobility in Sisyphus's plight. As Sisyphus descends the mountain to retrieve his boulder, Camus imagines him acutely aware of his fate. In that moment of lucidity, Sisyphus confronts the absurd. His labor is meaningless, his suffering eternal, his hopes futile. But here, Camus insists, lies his victory. By embracing his task without illusion, Sisyphus transcends his punishment. He becomes the master of his own fate, not through freedom, but through acceptance. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart, Camus concludes. Sisyphus's joy is not in the rolling of the stone, but in the act of rebellion. Each push is a refusal to let the gods, or the universe, define his worth. Camus reserved his harshest criticism for what he called philosophical suicide, the attempt to escape the absurd by inventing false meaning. Religion, he argued, is the most common form of this delusion. By attributing life's chaos to a divine plan, believers leap into faith to avoid confronting the absurd. But Camus saw this as a betrayal of lucidity. "I don't know whether this world has a meaning that transcends it," he wrote. "But I know that I do not know that meaning, and that it is impossible for me just now to know it." Even secular ideologies, nationalism, communism, the pursuit of wealth, can become forms of philosophical suicide. They offer ready-made answers to existential questions, allowing adherents to sleepwalk through life. For Camus, true freedom lies in rejecting these crutches. Living an experience, a particular fate, is accepting it fully, he wrote. If life has no meaning, how do we live? Camus proposed 3 antidotes to the absurd. The first is to revolt. To revolt is to refuse both suicide and delusion. It is to stare into the abyss and declare, "I shall not give in." Revolt is Sisyphus choosing to push the boulder again. It is the artist painting despite knowing her work will fade. It is the teacher educating children in a world teetering on climate collapse. Revolt is not hope, it is defiance. Absurdism liberates us from the tyranny of purpose, and the freedom that results is the second antidote to the absurd. Without predetermined meaning, we are free to create our own values. This is existential freedom, the realization that we are authors, not prisoners, of our lives. Camus' contemporary, Jean-Paul Sartre, called this "existence precedes essence." We exist first. Our choices define us. The third antidote is passion. Camus urged us to live with the quantity, not the quality, of experiences. By immersing ourselves in the sensory world, the taste of wine, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, we find a fleeting but profound richness. For everything begins with consciousness, and nothing is worth anything except through it, he wrote. Camus rejected religious answers to existential questions, but his atheism lacked the militancy of thinkers like Nietzsche. For Camus, religion was not an enemy, but a temptation, a seductive escape from the absurd. "I do not believe in God, and I am not an atheist," he once quipped, capturing his ambivalence. His critique focused on Christianity's emphasis on suffering as a path to salvation. To Camus, this glorified human agony as part of a divine plan, a notion he found morally indefensible. In The Plague, his novel about a pandemic ravaging a quarantined city, the atheist Dr. Rieu works tirelessly to save lives, not for God or glory, but because it is the only way to be human. Camus died in 1960, but his philosophy resonates in our era of climate anxiety, social media alienation, and political disillusionment. Modern existentialism grapples with the same questions. How do we find purpose in a world of algorithms and artificial intelligence? How do we connect in an age of curated identities and digital isolation? The answer, Camus might say, lies in returning to the absurd. When we stop seeking grand narratives, in technology, politics, or self-help gurus, we reclaim the immediacy of lived experience. A sunset is no less beautiful because it is fleeting. A friendship is no less meaningful because it will end. Social media, with its illusion of permanence and validation, often exacerbates the absurd. We chase likes and followers, mistaking them for significance. But Camus would urge us to log off, to touch grass, to laugh with a friend. Real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present, he wrote. Camus stood on the shoulders of Nietzsche, who declared God dead and called for the creation of new values. But where Nietzsche's Übermensch sought to transcend humanity, Camus' absurd man finds glory in his limitations. Both philosophers agreed on one point: the necessity of courage. Today, absurdism manifests in unexpected places. Memes about existential dread blend humor and despair. Climate activists rally despite knowing the odds. A nurse works double shifts in a crumbling healthcare system. These are modern Sisyphuses, pushing their boulders with eyes wide open. Camus never promised happiness. He promised integrity. To live absurdly is to reject both false hope and cynical despair. It is to say, I do not know why I am here, but I will live as if my choices matter. In the end, Sisyphus's task is ours. We marry, raise children, build careers, and chase dreams, all while knowing death erases everything. But Camus asks us to find joy in the pushing, not the summit. The rock will roll back, the sun will rise, and each day we begin again. I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain, Camus wrote. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happiness, then, is not the absence of absurdity. It is the presence of revolt.